I'm Tova with Professor Pincushion. Today I'm going to show you some simple stitches to create leaves with ribbon embroidery. Embroidering with ribbon is a delicate way to embellish your projects. Even if you know how to do flowers, be sure to add to your embroidery skills by learning how to accent with leaves and grasses. I'll show you how to do it so that your stitches look meticulous and professional. Let's go ahead and get started. First, let's prep by getting our needle and our ribbon. So I'm using a size 18 chenille needle, and the ribbon I'm using is silk and it's 6 millimeter. You can see on one side I cut the ribbon at an angle. I'm going to put it through the eye of my needle. I'm just going to pull it out just a little bit, and then I'm going to pierce the end of the ribbon. So I'm just going to go through it, and I'm about, I'd say, 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. So I'm going all the way through it. I'm going to pull this through so it goes completely through the needle. And that's what it should look like. Once you get to this point, I'm just going to pull the long side of the ribbon, and that's going to be your knot for getting started. So on the other end, all I'm going to do is take this, put it in a loop. Inside my loop, I'm going to bring the end through the loop, and that's going to create a knot on the other end as well. I have my woven fabric in an embroidery hoop so the fabric is nice and tight, and I'm using about 14 inches of ribbon for this embroidery. Now the first stitch I'm going to show you is going to be just a simple leaf stitch. So I'm pulling it all the way through from the wrong side to the right side so the knot's on the back side. I'm not going to pull this tight, but I'm just going to leave it just a little bit loose. And I'm going to go, I'd say, about a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch away from that. And you can go in the center when you pierce the ribbon, or you can go off to the side just a little bit. I kind of like it better when it's a little off center. You can see I'm going right through that ribbon, and I'm going to pull this all the way through, but you don't want to pull it so it's super tight. You want it to be a little bit on the looser side, because if I pull it tight, which I'll show you right now, it ends up looking not as pretty. The leaf stitch is a very versatile stitch because you can use different elements in different ways of using it in order to create different looks. So I'm going to show you one way that you can do that. I just have some embroidery floss that I'm going to be using first in order to create a stem stitch. I'm coming from wrong side to right side, and the stem stitch is mostly used as an outline stitch. So you can basically create any shape you want. I'm just going to go a little ways away from that. And then before I bring it all the way through, I'm going to come up in between those 2 points. Now I can pull it all the way through. That's my first stitch. Now I'm going to go a little ways away from that. Before I pull it all the way through, I'm going to go to where my last stitch is. And now I can pull it all the way through. So I'm just going to do this in order to create a branch for my leaves to be attached to. Once you have your branch, you can place leaves wherever you wish. So I'm going to start near a branch, wherever I want a leaf to appear, with my silk ribbon. And then just like I showed before, you want it to be a little loose. I'm going to go a little ways away from that, just a little off center. And I'm going to gently pull my ribbon through after I pierce it, and don't pull it too tight. So there's the first leaf, and then I can go ahead and continue on and create another one where I would like another one. Here's that same branch with a few leaves on it now. As you can see, it's a very delicate and beautiful look. Using that same leaf stitch, you can create a totally different look. In this case, I'm going to be doing something that looks like a fern. So it's the same stitch, you're just going to be sewing it all gathered up. So I came from the wrong side to the right side, and instead of just doing your stitches wherever you want, you're actually going to put them at an angle. So I'm going to go first stitch like this, then second stitch like this. So you're basically creating sort of like a V. So I'm going to do my first stitch, bring my ribbon over, and I don't make these stitches quite as loose, they're a little bit more tight than my previous ones. go through it, pull it through. Now my next one is going to be starting basically at the same point, just a little bit higher. And again, I'm going at an angle. So I'm bringing my ribbon over this way. I'm going to go through it. This is a little bit tighter. If you want to loosen it up, you can just gently kind of pull it out just a little bit, and that should be okay. All right, now I'm going to go back to the other side, and I'm going to be going at the same angle that I did my first stitch at. So pull this through, and I'm just going back and forth, back and forth. The stitches will eventually get shorter and shorter because you're starting out wide and then you're coming to a point. So I'll show you what that looks like when I finish. Here's my finished fern leaf. So you can see it's very easy. You're just stacking the stitches on top of each other, and then I end it by doing one in the center that's going vertical. Next, I'm going to show you how to do a leaf that's similar to the last leaf that we did. It's just a different way to do it. Sometimes it's easier to do an outline for yourself. I just mark this with my fabric marker, but you can use a pencil as well and just mark it very lightly. I'm going to start by doing just a simple little straight stitch up here at the top of my leaf. So in this particular case, I'm not piercing my ribbon at all. I'm just doing a stitch that's a little bit away from where I came out. And I'm just going to pull it. I'm going to go right next to it on my line. You can see I'm doing it a little bit below where my first stitch came out. Pull that through. Now go to the opposite side on your line, a little bit away from this top point of the leaf. Before you pull this all the way through, come up in the center near where your first middle stitch is. So I'm going right in the center. Now I can pull it all the way, and I want to be able to lock this down. So here's where the ribbon looped around, so I'm just going right on the opposite side of that in the center to create a little straight stitch that'll lock this into place. So mine's not perfectly center, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. Let me just do this a little bit so I tighten that a little bit. There we go. Now I'm just going to repeat the process. Again, I'm just going a little bit down on my line from where my last stitch was. Go to the opposite side. Before I pull it all the way through, I'm going to go in the center. Now I pull it all the way through, and then I just lock it into place. Let's move this out of the way so you can see where I'm going. So I can go in the center on the other side of my ribbon. And I'm just going to keep doing this process using my purple outline here as my guideline. Here is my finished leaf. You can see it has a little bit more texture than the last example because you do have those center stitches. Next, I'm going to show you how to do some grasses. This is actually a very easy stitch because basically you're just doing a simple straight stitch here. So I'm going to start by coming up, and then I'm just going to go straight down on wherever I want my grass to be. Now you can just keep it nice and flat like this, or let's do another one now. If you want it to be a little bit more interesting, you could just turn your needle a little bit. So the next stitch will have more of a twist to it and give it more of an interesting look. Lastly, I'm going to show you a gathered leaf. Now this requires a little bit more coordination, but I think it looks really neat. So I'm going to come up with my silk, pull it all the way through, and then just let it sit there for a second, because next I'm going to grab my embroidery floss on my embroidery needle. I'm going to come up just underneath and come up through my ribbon. So I'm just coming up through the center here. Pull this all the way through. Now I'm going to do a running stitch that goes right along the center of the ribbon. So it's not easy because silk ribbon ends up being very slippery, but I'm just going, I'll just do a couple stitches at a time. So I'm going down and then up and then down and then up, and try to stay in the center. Let me just do one more so I can gather this a little bit more than what I'd like. Okay, so you can see I have the stitch going down the center. Now I'm just going to pull the silk ribbon onto the running stitch. So it was flat, and then I'm just starting to gather this up, and you can see it starts to curl. Once you get it the way that you want it to be, go ahead and go down into the ribbon. Don't go down into the same hole of your running stitch, but just a little ways away from that. Obviously you want to use a matching color embroidery floss. I'm just using a contrasting one so it's a little bit easier for you to see. And then I'm going to go down into my ribbon and pull it all the way through. And then that'll give you a little leaf that's more 3D because it's actually coming off the fabric, and then it's also gathered. When you want to tie off a stitch, so we want to make sure that our embroidery does not come undone, you're going to flip it over to the wrong side, and instead of just tying a knot, what I like to do is go through a previous stitch ribbon. So I'm going right through the center of this ribbon. I'm going to pull this all the way through. You want to make sure that you don't yank on it because we don't want to ruin something on the other side. And then I just like to go through it again. So after I go through it, then I can just trim off the excess ribbon. And that's it. So if you're interested in doing other ribbon embroidery, check out our other tutorial on ribbon roses. We hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please subscribe to get notified of our weekly releases. Also check out ProfessorPincushion.com to view our complete library with well over 350 sewing tutorials. If you would like to directly support us, you can check out our Patreon campaign and earn some exclusive perks. Thanks for watching.